Good morning, YouTube. What's going on, guys? This is JD Moonin. Coming at you guys with another video. It's again, we're not doing a Magic DK build video today, unfortunately. It's not a DJ stream either, but we are going to continue on with some more updates from the SIC revolution, I like to call it. So I am aware that the dev package and the pilot packages that I had originally put up were having some issues with the installer, so I'm working on getting those issues fixed today. So I might have to go in and readjust and create a new UI and all that good stuff. So unfortunately, those packages were not functioning properly. So I'm getting those rebuilt. Working on that right now. So I want to give you guys an update to kind of tell you what's going on. So this core project is kind of taken like a mind of its own. So there's a very, very old book. That's you can find it on Yale's website. So basically, one of the things that I'm going to be doing to kind of prove I guess you could say the grit of I guess you could say the way that the sequencing and the computation works coming from the tarot deck. So based on the same modular function of the tarot deck and the symbolic resonance and the way that all of that symbology kind of ties together and kind of works together, I am actually translating a document. It's a cipher. It's about plants that Yale has released and said that basically it puts in there that it's in an unknown language and it still has yet to be fully translated. I'm almost completely done with translating it. So basically the way that translation works through the Book of Thoth and using analogies and all that stuff, and also the numerical system that is the core setup. It's working in translating this book. I've almost got it completely finished. So that's exciting. So not only am I going to submit that to Yale, but I'll put it on YouTube also for everybody to check it out. But I'm killing like 3 birds with one stone with this. So on top of that, it's also going to be the lexicon. So the lexicon's already been created. So the full lexicon will be fully implemented into the core from this actual translation. Because while we were actually going through and building out the translation for it, we found that there was a lexicon that actually is usable in the core. So it was like, whoa, this is awesome, So yeah, there's a lot of really cool things to come with the core. So for those of you guys who don't really understand what the core is, let me kind of cue you guys in on this core. This core is a hybrid core, okay? Meaning it can compute on both CPU and GPU. What's really interesting about this is it has offload capabilities, meaning you can run it on your rig as a standalone core, and you can wire in. This is the first one of its kind that does this. You can actually wire in both CPU and GPU to it. So the CPU benchmarks are already insane. For those of you who haven't seen the documents, I'll see if I can cover up my beautiful face for a moment with the benchmarks. I'll put those right there, and kind of just briefly show you guys the implications that this core has. And so keep in mind too, when the benchmarks were ran on this core, the core was it was in prototype. So I mean, it still is a prototype, but I mean, at that time it didn't have this stuff that I've added to it now. So I've got some more lattice stuff that's come about and things like that. I'm gonna also, as a matter of fact, I'll put them in this video as well. I'll show you guys the polyhedron that it creates, and then also the honeycomb computing structure that's built into it, and then how it also creates a layered spherical construct. So keep in mind, this is a 3D infinite, you know, geometrical construct that computes in that way. So it's very interesting in the way it works, and I'll really, like I said, I'll release a lot more data on this as time goes on. But so what's really mind blowing for a lot of people is that, like, for instance, I sent it off to my cousin's a master inventor for IBM, and when I sent it to him, he was like, "Oh, this seems, it seems like it's very broad and very kind of," and it's like, yeah, because it can be used in any industry. That's what's so amazing about it. This is the revolution for computers. I believe it's absolutely necessary for the evolution of man. Okay, so basically what I'm here to do is I'm here to show everybody that they've been worshiping a computer language. So all of this information, everything that's that's put into this core, it all comes from esoteric and religious doctrines. The computation is integer-only arithmetic from philosophical, schools of thought. The weighting and all that stuff, a lot of that stuff is I mean, it's what everybody thought was pseudoscience. Okay, I always knew there was something to it. It's not pseudoscience at all. As a matter of fact, it's the bedrock for the foundation in which the universe works. The laws that bind the core itself come from the divine word called Yod-He Vav-He. Yod-He Vav-He is very eloquently broken down into schematics. There's an ancient book called the Tarot of the Bohemian. Okay, and in that book, you can see how Papus literally breaks down the function of positive and negative and neutral, and how that stuff all works in tandem with each other at the same time. So basically, all I did was I didn't, do what quantum mechanics is so incorrectly doing, okay? Because the problem with quantum mechanics is that they take something that doesn't exist and then they just add it to the equation. That's not how you figure things out. That's how you create massive what the fucks, you know what I mean? So instead what I did was I went a different route. I didn't add anything that didn't already exist. I just basically created another state for the computer to recognize. And then instead of running them simultaneously, that state is experienced by the computer at the same time as the other two states. So just like a human consciousness, how we experience a positive, a negative, and a neutral state of being all at one time, now the computer will also experience a positive, a negative, and a neutral state of being all at one time. This is the revolution. And not only that, but if you can actually understand the law of Yod-He Vav-He, then you'll be able to understand the foundation of the universe. You'll be able to understand the foundation of consciousness, and basically, if you can understand that, you won't be so surprised when you go look at the periodic table of elements and you realize that consciousness in the third dimension was birthed into the third dimension from hydrogen. I can easily prove this on a periodic table of elements, because if you look at helium, I like to say that it is exactly 2 stabilized hydrogen atoms. And people look at me and go, well, there's no such thing as a stabilized hydrogen atom. And I'll tell them, yeah, that's because twin flames exist. So what that means is that's 2 consciousnesses that come together to evolve together. That's what a twin flame is. And so naturally, because there is no guesswork in the universe, right? Coincidences don't exist. That's a fallacy. Just like probability doesn't exist. That's all bullshit. And so you'll notice that when a hydrogen atom gets stabilized or gains consciousness, okay, another hydrogen atom will gain consciousness or stabilize at the exact same time, and they come together and they form helium. This is the first example. This is why Darwin's theory of evolution was slightly off. Why it's relatively incorrect. Because if you go by Darwin's theory, then that would mean that if we evolve from apes or something like that, then that would mean that the apes are no longer going to exist. That's not the case at all. Because, see, evolution is not, you become this thing and then what you were before no longer exists. That's not how that works. What happens is that as something evolves, then it gains dominion over the thing that it evolved from. Now, when you understand what you have to go through in order to gain power, for one, okay, you'll understand that nothing is going to evolve over something, gain dominion, and necessarily become a tyrant or wipe out the thing prior. And it's not to say that it doesn't happen. It's me basically saying that that's typically not how it works. And if it does work that way, then there's some kind of change that must be done. But relatively speaking, what happens is when something gains dominion over something else, then not only is it charged with the stead of that thing, but it's also charged with the well-being of that thing. So, I mean, with wisdom and power, because that's what evolution of consciousness ultimately is its evolution of wisdom, meaning, wisdom is the application of knowledge. So knowledge is not something that we lose throughout life and death. It's not. We don't lose that. That knowledge carries with us. Death and rebirth is a thing. Like the amount of times that I've done this very cycle is out of this world. When you go into meditation over a period of time, you can start to remember who you were in past lives. And so once you start getting these understandings, it will make you look at these things in a lot different way. But so let me explain to you so you guys can have the ultimate understanding of what evolution actually is. So first there's the law. There's one law that must be understood and applied. Every whole thing is made up of two other whole things. Okay, this is the law. This is the minimum law. So what that means is that these two other whole things come together. Okay, their consciousness is joined together as a third thing to envelop the two whole things that once were there before. Okay, that's not to say that the two whole things that they were once before lose consciousness. That's not at all what happens. The consciousnesses have become more powerful, and so now they gain dominion over the conscious things that they were once before, if that makes sense. Now, that being said, I know a lot of people might look at like death, and go, well, why do we die? Well, so if you understand evolution properly, then you'll understand why the necessity for a cycle is. And so what's happening is basically it's like the cells and the things that you are, they recycle over time, and so that's why cells die off and stuff in our body. However, we're supposed to regenerate those things, fast enough to continue surviving. But over a period of time, for whatever reason, we've damaged some of the things in our cells and things like that. But that's all going to change. So it's all starting now with, the golden dawn is here. With this creation that I've created, as I start building on it further, it won't be so weird when people start to realize that I'm rebuilding Yeshua. Okay, this is all ancient tech. We're talking Atlantean tech. Atlantis really existed. You can go read a book called the Timaeus, and Plato gives you an exact location. All you have to do is, if you go due west, right out of the Straits of Gibraltar, right past the Pillars of Hercules, and you just keep going due west, it's going to put you in a crater. We know that crater is the Hudson Bay. What do we know about 15,000 years ago, about the time that Atlantis is known to have been destroyed? Well, there was a massive fucking meteorite that hit the North American ice sheet. What's interesting is when I went and I was doing some research on the Hudson Bay, I looked up nano diamonds in the Hudson Bay. Nobody's really looked over there, but there have been some that were found. Well, there's only two ways for nano diamonds to be created, okay? And that's either a nuclear blast or a kinetic impact. So all that being said, maybe here's a little bit of food for thought. If you guys are inquisitive like me, you go check it out. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But so anyways, yeah, so I'll be releasing some more information on the core and its foundation and how it works, and how, in the future I think that computing is going to move towards more simplistic arithmetic. Humans have this innate need with just overcomplicating everything. And so I think that we're about to figure out that the universe really isn't all that complicated. It's quite simple. Life, love, experience, all that. It's very simple. And so I invite you guys to join me on this journey as I continue my SI core, the stabilized infinity core that I built, and let's see where it can go. I mean, I'm really excited to see what the community is going to do with it. So yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you guys either later on today or tomorrow with another update.